What up, Raffalitos? Welcome back to my channel. We are back in Kingston. This is Kingston Esplanade, Kingston seawall. That's looking towards the Demerara River. There are a couple of vessels coming in off the Atlantic Ocean. This one might be a fishing vessel. As might this one be as well. And these are some smaller boats. Actually, I'm kind of not sure what these are. But yes, guys, we're back at Kingston, and I wanted to continue from where I left off. Last time I was out here, I was talking about the development of new hotels. That's looking east, and the building in the middle of the screen, that's the new 16-story Pasha Global 5-star resort hotel at Pattinson or Sophia, depending on how you look at the boundaries of that neighborhood. And between Pasha and where we are is supposed to be a new Hilton hotel. It's going to be somewhere around there, and we are standing in front of the Pegasus Suites and Corporate Center. This blue part of the building, that's referred to as the Convention Center, and this 12-story tall dark part of the building, that is Pegasus Suites. And this is, I'm standing on a sand box, sort of, that was built recently as part of the beautification of the seawall area. And what they did is they built a wall of boulders. This is to prevent beach erosion. They've built a wall of boulders and extended that wall for about a quarter of a mile east of where we are. And we saw on Easter Monday, even though there was no wind for kite flying, the beach allowed people to hang out and use more space than would have been possible without the beach. So this beach is also, it extends towards the river. We're going to look at that in a sec. I just wanted to see what has happened to the new Pegasus Suite. So the Pegasus Suites, that's this building, is about to have a twin because they've decided to build another 12-story building identical to the first next door. And the last time we were here, we took a look at what was happening. They were clearing this area. So they've actually done the clearing, but they haven't started working on the foundation. Usually what's going to have to happen is they're going to dig out a huge pit. There's going to be a huge pit for the foundation to be installed, and I don't know how close it's going to be to this building, but if it's going to be the same dimension, it's going to take up all of that space, which means they're going to have to tear down this fence eventually to allow access to the earth moving equipment, and then they're going to have to remove the topsoil and start driving piles to build the foundation, which is what they did. You can go back and check the archives for a lot of the videos that I made during the time that they were constructing this building, the Pegasus Suites, and you'll see how much of a foundation they had to put in to install to begin to build the Pegasus Suites. So that's Pegasus Suites and Corporate Center. That's going to build a twin nearby. But straight ahead, that is the Marriott Marquis. Well, the Marriott, Georgetown Marriott Hotel. It's not a marquee. The marquee is in Midtown Manhattan. Actually, I used to hang out at the Marriott Marquis back in the days, late 90s. It was one of those places where you could get up onto the 47th floor, I believe. There was a restaurant there, but you can get a view of the city in a revolving or rotating restaurant at the Marriott Marquis in Midtown, just at Times Square. So that's where I kind of remember first encountering the Marriott brand. But this is Georgetown Marriott. Now, this Marriott was put up for sale by the current government. The sale was not completed, although a buyer was found. I'm still not certain what they intend to do, because that deal fell through when the buyer died. But I believe the government's intention was to still sell this hotel, although they might have removed it, taken it off the market since then. Kingston, behind these trees, is also growing. So that is the top of a building in 4th Street, I believe, Kingston. I think I've looked at that building several years ago. It's a office tower, an office building that was being constructed. I think it's probably should be finished now. I don't know if it's occupied, but our office building is in Kingston, and of course next door to it is the old lighthouse. Now, because the Marriott is taller than the old lighthouse, they actually placed a lighthouse on top of the Marriott. So that is the new lighthouse that replaced the old lighthouse. The old lighthouse, because it's now behind the Marriott, and therefore they had to make an arrangement with the lighthouse. Since they're going to block the old lighthouse, they had to make an arrangement to put a lighthouse on top of the Marriott. Now, I don't know if this lighthouse works, because I've been here at night and I have never really seen the flashing light that is characteristic of a lighthouse. But this is what is happening out here. This is the artificial beach that was created by the Marriott. Marriott, of course, is owned by the people of Guyana. It's owned by the state, because the money to build the Marriott was actually funds from the investment fund from the divestment of privatization of state assets, Gaisuku, and a lot of the companies that were owned by the government.
Distance 3 miles. Duration 1 hour 7 minutes 26 seconds. Pace 34 minutes 27 seconds per mile.
Yes, they divested state assets and used the money from the state to build this hotel, the Marriott, and that is how it's become state property. And since the money from the sale of state companies was used, this belongs to the people of Guyana. Marriott Hotel actually belongs to the people of Guyana. It doesn't belong to a private owner. And so the government wanted to change that. That is, the current PPP government has the bright idea that they would change that, sell it into private hands and use the money to, I guess, build something else. I don't know what the thinking was, but it hasn't been sold. We're heading west towards the river. Last time we were here might have been almost a year ago. But since the last time we were here, they've added kind of park with benches to the jetty. So that's a jetty at the end of this beach, and beyond the jetty is the river. It's a groin, I guess. It's an artificial groin that was built to preserve the coast, to stop coastal erosion. Beyond that groin is in fact the river, the mouth of the Demerara River. And beyond the mouth of the Demerara River is a little island, an artificial island that was built for, I guess, shore-based operations for the offshore oil companies. And it illustrates a point that I made several times in previous videos, that you can actually reclaim a lot of this land at the coast, because it's really mud flats. There's at least a mile offshore where the coast is very shallow. It's about the same level as beyond the seawall is at the same height below sea level as the coast. So it would be very easy to reclaim those mud flats by simply building up on the land. And that was done at the mouth of the river here, so that so they've actually made some changes to this. They've made some changes to this jetty, to this groin. I'm going to take a look in a minute. But yeah, so not very far from here is this new shore-based island that was made by reclaiming land at the mouth of the river. And so it's been demonstrated. They've added some mesh, I believe. That's what the groin looks like now. They've added some benches, and they've added some mesh. I think people who are the fishers, the people who come out to fish, still use this area. But yes, over there in that direction, center of the screen now, is this island that is now shore base for ships operating offshore, right? Operating ships that are plying between the oil rigs and the FPSOs and Georgetown, carrying workers and supplies and so on. Those ships come ashore at this new shore base facility, and that shore base facility was built by reclaiming land from the river. Okay, it's behind this vessel. Of course, out there's also this is like a barge or something that seems to be parked at the mouth of the river. There is a deep trench in between those two vessels. There's more of these vessels coming in. I think these might not be fishing vessels. This actually might be some kind of ferry. There is a route to Georgetown from the northwest district that goes out to sea and comes in here at the Demerara River, the mouth of the Demerara River. So some of these boats might be coming in. What we can see in this view though, looking down the river, is you can begin to see the bridge. That is the new Demerara River Bridge. You can see that from, it's about 4 miles, maybe 5 miles from where we are right now. But there in the center of the screen is the part of the bridge. It extends from the west bank, of the Demerara River. It's been completed, I think, halfway across the river. We have been looking in our videos and the ones published on this channel. We've been looking at the east bank. This is looking back where we came from. That's the Marriott Hotel. And behind the Marriott, of course, is the Pegasus. Right behind the Marriott, that's the Pegasus. Pegasus Suites and Corporate Center. And in front of it is the Marriott. This is police outpost. So let's see if you can get another look at the bridge, the new Demerara Bridge. Okay, so I'm walking on a ledge here that is at the edge of the river, but there in the distance, about 5 miles up the river, you can see the Demerara River Bridge, the new Demerara River Bridge. It's faint in this view, but it extends halfway across the river from the west bank. So a significant amount of construction has been completed at both ends. Like I said in the previous sequence of videos that I've been making, I've concentrated on looking at the east end, but of course construction is also taking place at the west end of the bridge. And from the look of things, the bridge is halfway across the river. At least they've completed the base, the structure, the base for the road. They filled in those gaps between the platforms, so they've actually completed most of the spans up to the middle, and what remains to be done is apparently the high span section, which of course is very close to the east bank. But this is where we are. This is Kingston. This is the edge of Kingston. Of course, on the other side, that is the Marriott through the fence. And what I wanted to show you at this point is there in the distance, that is the shore base. It's fully operational now. That has been reclaimed. That's reclaimed from the river, from the mouth of the river, and now it's fully operational. And it illustrates the point I make in previous videos, that instead of building the Hilton Hotel on land that was basically confiscated from the schools and the Guyana National Service, it is quite possible to reclaim land from the sea and to build a hotel or series of hotels, waterfront hotels on reclaimed land. But this is Kingston, this is where we are. The stacks, the smokestacks in the distance, that is the power station, the Guyana Power Light have their generating plant over there. And this is Battery Road in Kingston. We're back on Battery Road in Kingston. The end of this road, of course, is the river, and there's of course some stone operations where they're collecting, or not collecting, but yes, I guess collecting stones for construction that is mined, quarried further inland and brought here for deposit. This is the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Public Health Central Supplies, and this is the Ministry of Forestry. I've said before that these are probably prime real estate for hotels and tourism related activities. There was a plan, of course, to turn all of this riverfront property into a boardwalk for a city. That plan is yet to be implemented. Of course, it makes great sense to move all of the industries off of the river because these industries are a source of pollution. And instead of having, if we're passing in front of the Marriott Hotel, that's the Marriott Hotel in front. Yes, instead of making the waterfront in Georgetown, Riverfront, the zone for oil companies like Halliburton and Exxon and Saipem and Schlumberger. All these companies now have property on the waterfront, but there's no reason to have in the city of Georgetown the waterfront be taken over by these oil companies. Instead, they ought to remove all the oil companies, and this, of course, this power company, Guyana Power and Light, should be removed further inland so that the waterfront could be reserved for residential and commercial. In other words, hotels, high-rise apartments, because this is in fact logically what should be done and what is being done in places like Dubai, Singapore, and so on. They've moved industries off of prime waterfront property and turned it into real valuable real estate for commercial property. We're in Kingston. Now we're going past the lighthouse. Like I said, the lighthouse has now been moved to the top. That's the lighthouse at the top of the Marriott Hotel. Showed you this in the previous video. That's the Marriott. But this is the original lighthouse. It's still a landmark, but it's no longer visible from the sea, from the ocean. And I think you can still probably visit this lighthouse as a tourist for a small fee during the day. Ministry of Public Infrastructure is over here. This is the building I was pointing out from the seawall. That building is an office tower, office building. It was built sometime during the pandemic or completed sometime in around 2019, 2020. 2020, I think. Yeah, so this is the lighthouse it's no longer active, but it certainly is still a landmark, and you can visit the lighthouse during, I guess, during the day. And this is the Kingston power plant. Now this, of course, is probably going to be replaced eventually after the gas to shore project has been completed, because of course the goal of the gas to shore pipeline is to bring natural gas from the operations, that is the oil recovery operations on the ocean, to make that gas accessible for power generation. So I assume that over time this power plant should be replaced as they move the center of power generation to the west coast. Right, this is the current power plant, and they're going to move the operation of the gas to shore power project will be off. The center of that operation will be on the west coast of Demerara, where they're currently building the gas to shore pipeline project. I still have to make a visit to see what has happened so far with the gas to shore pipeline. This is Barrack Street in Kingston, and this is the Lincoln American University. So this is Lincoln American University. That's the location here in Kingston. Barrack Street in Kingston, and we're actually walking on Water Street, so that's Barrack Street, Kingston. Of course, that's looking back at the Marriott Hotel. It's at the top of Water Street here in Kingston. This is the power plant, and a power and light. Canadian. Oh, I didn't know that. This is the Canadian Embassy, the visa application center. Canadian Embassy is located, Canadian High Commission is located here in this building. That's kind of new because the last time I was here, that wasn't there. This is the power production distribution center for the Guyana Power and Light. And points south, we're heading south, but points further south of where we are is in fact Water Street properly. So that's it, guys. That is Kingston from Water Street. We looked at the beachfront, the riverfront, and now the Water Street end of Kingston. And we're stopping here at the Molasses Terminal. We're going to continue in another video. We actually have been in this neck of the woods before. That's Cowan Street, and beyond Cowan Street is the end of the railway line. So Georgetown was the first city in South America to have a railway, and this building was the old railway power station. Well, not power, but repair station. So where all the carriages, the trains, would come for repair. And that, of course, is the remnants of the previous railway. We've seen this before in previous videos, right? That's the old train, or a section of the old train from the previous railway, and this is where the line came to an end. the East Coast Railway line came to an end. But we'll talk about that again in future videos. If you want to see more content like this, click like and subscribe. Share this video with friends and family around the world. Let people know what's happening here in the fastest growing country in the world, Guyana. Later! This is the coca. We've seen this in previous videos, of course, so this is not new. And we're going to see more of it in future. Later!